here today with a good friend of mine, and somebody I'm really honored also to interview today is Brian Ashworth. Brian is quite the Arizona drag racing legend. Kind of like the whack-a-mole. He kind of pops up in different places, and he's doing this and he does that. But he's done a lot, and he had a lot of racing experience, and a lot of good stories to tell about it. So, welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
So, we always start off getting to know you. Where were you born?
I was born in Alhambra, California.
Well, Californian, huh?
Yeah.
And at the ripe old age of, when you moved here?
11 years old. Actually lived in a little place over there, Charter Oak. And it was halfway between Irwindale and Pomona. So as a kid, I remembered hearing fuel cars running and asking what the heck's all that stuff. So that was kind of my first.
Where did your passion for cars start?
Well, my dad was involved with, first off, he was worked in parts for Chevrolet and a couple dealerships there in El Monte. He had a good friend that was into road racing, and they also drag raced as well. And so growing up as a kid, I knew of all that stuff. And actually, my first race going to was actually a road race at Riverside, the 63 Times Grand Prix, in which my dad's friend won that deal. And always had an itch since then, if there were cars running or if there was something cool, yeah.
So you got bitten by the bug early, you got the attention to it. So you, 11, you moved to Arizona, and you kind of got established here, and what happened here?
Well, next door neighbor was part of the crew for the winemaker funny car, which I really blame those guys for the big itch. In 71, they raced out at Beeline, and the next door neighbor piled us all in the back of his mid-60s Chevy truck. There was probably 5 of us kids. He put it in the bed of the truck. We were at 43rd Avenue in Bell, and then went clear out to Beeline. That was my first drag race I'd ever been to.
Somebody took you to the drag races in the back of a pickup truck?
Yeah.
That never happened to me, right, Bill Gusick?
No, a couple of 3 times.
So, and at some point, I sat in the winemaker funny car. I'm like, this is cool.
Which one was it?
It was the all purple one.
Okay.
Yeah, the dark colored one. Yes. The older car, which I guess became Powers' car, the white with the purple, was sitting in the neighbor's garage, which was way cool as a kid. So yeah, Bill Bronner and Ed Pauling, those guys were constantly over there. Usually not to work on cars; they were doing other things. But yeah, that kind of sunk the hook.
So how old were you? Like in 71, you would have been what?
I was like 12 years old.
Fully engaged.
Oh, yeah, I was done.
So you made it a Beeline. Was that your first time to the track?
First time to a drag strip ever.
And so you went out with a fuel funny car, and you were hooked.
Yeah, done.
So moving forward, how did you start feeding your need for speed?
Well, around 1976, I had a 66 Chevelle wagon, and I started going to the midnight drags out at Beeline. Go out there and run my mighty 1880s. Would go a few rounds, and then I got involved with ADRA and started meeting
Arizona
people.
Drag Racing Association.
Yep. And one thing led to another. I raced buddy of mine's 69 Chevelle out there. I raced my wagon out there. And I think it was in 76 or 77, they had high school drags out there. And that was my first bigger, quote, event. And I won my bracket with that deal. And which was cool. You know, high school newspaper.
Was that your first big championship?
Yeah,
that you won like
exactly. That sunk it even deeper. Then they had the finals. They brought everybody that won to a final race, and I ended up burning up a transmission, which led to learning how to do my own power glides, because I had no money to do elsewise. So once I got out of high school, guy that graduated a year ahead of me had a 64 Chevy 2, which got stolen. So they had recovered it. He'd already sold the 327 and 4-speed out of it. So he had the Hulk sitting there, and he wanted $100 for it. So me and a buddy of mine went halves on it, bought this thing.
Who's your buddy?
Tom Broadus.
Okay.
He's no longer with us. He used to work at Big Bill's. And
Big Bill's Wheels and Deals.
oh God, yeah.
Deals and Wheels or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we pieced together a little 283, and I put together a glide for it. We went out there and we were running probably 14s with this little 283 and a glide, and went out there. I won a couple races with it, and ended up breaking the motor. It was bad news. I mean, it leaked everywhere, and finally got to be a pain in the butt, and we parked it. At that point in time, I went to work at Carl Harvey's for a short bit, which brought in the next car I got to drive.
Carl Harvey's Mopar Performance Center?
Yeah. And that was a short-lived deal, but I started working with Matt McCauley, who did announcing out at Phoenix and also Beeline to a certain extent. He had borrowed, begged, traded, whatever for the Axer, which was a 68 Roadrunner. We piecemealed that together. We're out running 13s and so on. We put it together basically to go to the 78 Bakersfield runoffs. We were running on basically a pro tree out here. In comparison, it was, I think we were only 3 5/10ths. Get over to Bakersfield and there's 5 of them devils. It was like waiting an eternity for that tree to come down. So what do I do first round after qualifying? Red light. So you drive 10 hours to go over there and red light. So progressed from there, got the Chevy 2 back together, ran around with it, and became just a complete pain in the butt at it. The Donnelly showed up and got Phoenix Raceway Park going, and just had a good old time between 80 and 80, I would say 83.
That was kind of the car that most people got to know you in that, yeah.
Yeah, or dreaded seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
That guy again.
Yeah, won a couple track championships there. Won a dime or two. 82, I bought a house. So with that came even less funds to work with. So the car kind of got parked, and I decided to go go-kart racing. So we were racing dirt in 83 at Manzanita. Played games with that stuff, realized there was no return and the people weren't as sociable as my drag racing partners. So won the novice championship with the kart, sold it, decided I would go drag racing again. So it was kind of a hit and miss thing from 83 to probably 93 or 4.
But you gained a reputation as a good driver. A good guy could drive a car really well, which I know for a fact is true. Who noticed you first? Who came to you and said, "Hey, kid"?
Actually, yeah, the guy that I got close to and did a lot of help was Ed Bottom. He kind of took me under his wing and learned more about the motor end of it, chassis end of it, and helped him run his car. it was, yeah, there were some fun times.
Ed was quite the guy. He had some neat cars. Wasn't afraid to build quick cars. Had some good drivers.
No, at the time it was one of the reputable quick door cars. Big block with a clutch turbo, which was a little different for the time.
Camaro?
It was a Camaro.
Right.
It was a Camaro. Yeah, Sand Chevrolet backed him, and yeah, I think we went through a couple motors that Buzzard helped us with. But in that interim, yeah, there were a couple other cars that I hopped in just for giggles. Oh man, points deal. I ended up having to drive Terry Marshall's truck to get enough points, and that was '82, to get enough points just to keep my first place position going. I think I drove Ed's tow truck one time when my car was broke, but always just scrimping to keep Chevy 2 going. It was always, oh, I got $100 hid over here. I'm going to buy this part. It was always scrimping to do things.
So Brian, Brian has been one of my drivers for one of my race cars, in probably one of the fuel altered. And I picked you, Brian, because I knew you know how to scrounge, and you weren't gonna spend money foolishly, and you got a lot out of what you for the money you put into things. You got a lot out of it.
Well,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Part of it was early on. Yeah, I had to build, for instance, power glides. I learned how to do that. My dad came home and just flipped out. I had pulled that power glide apart, slid it across the garage floor, piece by piece. As I pulled something out, I moved it, and there was this snake trail through the garage. By God, when I got done putting it back together, it worked.
You only had 7 extra pieces, right?
Actually did real well with that, and it became pretty simple at that point. But yeah, it was out of no money, just starting to do that stuff, and then it became a pride thing. Hey, I can do this with this, and without spending a ton of money, and having the other half going, what are you doing now? Even though she came from
Yes. You moved on, and then you got, when did you hook up with Greg Seeley?
That was, of course, we'd always raced one another, and it always got along and had a good time. 94, he came to me and asked me if I wanted to drive his super stock car. Me not to turn things down. I was like all over that. So we went out there. I had gotten part of my license.
What kind of car was this?
It was a 93 Mustang Cobra. We ran SSBS and SSAS. Just fun drive. Let go of the button, see nothing but blue sky, and just feel whether you're going right or left in the seat of your pants. Yeah, kind of cool to run low 9s at 100. I think we went 155 miles an hour with the car. That was in 95. We did that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, eye-opening. Learned a lot more on the motor side of it, learning, all the technical ins and outs on the heads and short blocks, and getting a little pickier about how things were done. And which led to some other cars with those guys.
Well, yeah, the great family, and Greg is the patriarch of the family, and you ended up working with his son Chris.
Yep.
On his no prep, small tire, big tire, pro mod, not pro mod, but his Mustang, the Black Jack Mustang. So tell us about that car.
Twin turbocharged, small block Ford. We've run 440s at almost 170 miles an hour with that on a no prep surface. Much like driving your altered, when you let go of the button, you don't really have a you're wondering which way it's going to go first. And when it doesn't go either way, and it becomes an e-ticket ride.
Well, you've been faster in that car than you've been in the Alter. You went 200 and
Call it 205.
in the quarter mile at
Yes.
Waldorf's Pass.
Yeah, and that should have been in the 6s, but some dummy didn't get quite enough boost, and he saw the yellow light, and of course, reaction being what it was, I let go of the button too soon. But hey, it was 712 at 204.98. So like I said, 205.
So you've driven a lot of different cars. You've helped a lot of people out. You've mentored a lot of people. A lot of people, their projects, they come to Brian because they know that he's not going to spend money foolishly, but he knows what good parts are. You've helped a lot of people. Who's the number one person that helped you along the way?
Oh God!
Well, not number one, but who are some of the people? Because it's more than one. It's got.
Like I said, the biggest people like Ed Bottom and Greg Seelick, again, has been a big help and a lot of fun. I mean, we managed to have fun with it. He was a little nervous initially when I got in the seat, but after a while, it got to be fun.
The trust game.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, because when I first got to go to the Winter Nationals with his car in '95, we went out and stood the car completely on the bumper, tweaked the wheelie bars. It was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It was kind of, it was crazy. Brought it back to the pits.
This is a Ford, huh?
This is a Ford, yes. Yeah, one of those deals, yeah. Oh,
You could build some power.
just a little bit. And it was learning how to manage that. And the trust between the two of us and setting it up really came about at that race.
So who's been your biggest fan?
I'd have to say my wife, Becky. Of course, met her at the races, so yeah, she's by far my biggest fan.
How long you been married now?
37 years.
Awesome. Congratulations.
I survived.
You went on and then you've done a lot of different cars. I called it, I bought I was looking to build one car and found a deal on a cool altered, and I thought of people I wanted to drive for me, and all the reasons of the thing, your resume of what you just talked about is what came to mind. And a lot of people go, "Are you crazy?" I go, "No, Brian's the guy." And you rebuilt the transmission several times, and you maintained the car, but you were a good driver. And we didn't really have a lot of places to run the car a bunch, but our first car was a S&W chassis, big black Chevy injected, and we had some good time. Accidentally won money.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know it.
And our first event with that particular car.
And we went on, and that one thing led to another, and had to get a supercharger to run with those guys, and we decided to go. I bought another car with a TFX Hemi in it, and the car we have now, the Twilight Zone car, and did a great job driving that and having it prepared, and we had a great time. But unfortunately, sometimes life has these little tricky things they do to us, and you became a good example to a lot of people about just getting through things and getting on. Tell us what your road, what happened to you. It took you out of the seat, and it wasn't me. Well, it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, my body decided it didn't like the liver that I had, and had a liver transplant in March of 2001, and that's good. Part of it has gone pretty good. I've become a walking chemistry experiment. We're doing pretty good until probably October or November of 21. Then I started having back issues. They blame it partially on drugs and that type of thing. And that really has knocked me down.
Ones you're choosing or ones they gave you?
Oh, nothing but theirs.
Okay.
And he said, the walking chemistry experiment. So I was bedridden from December to about beginning of March, between 2021 and 22. And that's really what I'm recovering from more or less now. And I'm a whole heck of a lot better and moving around better and looking to plant my butt back in a seat.
That'll happen. You just the great thing is that you've inspired a lot of people. That you were, I mean, you could have died, and you took the path that said, well, let's get through this. And I think that's inspirational. A lot of people. We always talk about what we do. So you went after some aftermarket parts or recycled parts, and just kind of like your race car. I love those new set of cylinder heads, but I'm going to get these used ones because they're working.
Yeah.
And you got somebody was unfortunately somebody left us, but they were on the donor list, and their unselfishness has kept you alive.
Yeah, that's probably when initially they called me and said they had a liver. That was probably, as they're wheeling me down the hallway getting ready for the first go around, which didn't go, thinking about, that person, and that family having to give up something for me to get something. So that first time around was, all those thoughts ran through my head. And that first one, the first liver wasn't viable. The second one was, and I'd pretty much, after going through that the first time, the second time was a lot easier, and then all the fun began.
So, one thing that's I don't usually talk about things like this, but I do think it's important. Now, not everybody can be a organ donor, and not everybody for different reasons. But if you can,
without a doubt,
it makes a big difference. I mean, not just one organ gets donated from people. That could save or affect 3 or 4 lives by donating. So, here's the non-paid commercial endorsement. If you can, please think about being an organ donor.
It's a checkbox.
Yeah.
It's easy enough to do. I've done it I've had it in place a long time, and now I'm a hero of it.
You're doing good. You've got your physical. You kept your license active. You're definitely a good advisor on the race car now, and couldn't do it without you. Where's your racetrack you went to that you never thought you'd get to in your life, that you finally got to race, that you really enjoyed racing at?
Oh, it had to be Pomona. To be able to run the Winter Nationals, that was great. Pulling through the garage doors out into that strip that was probably my biggest moment, being able to pull out there and run down that track.
Your best memory?
My best memory? Wow, there's a lot of them. What's left of them? As we get older, we forget stuff. Wow. Probably that 205 pass. Really, that's the one that I always think about because of how smooth it was, how well it went.
I was there, and I can still remember where I was standing on the track and looking at it, and I go, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always joke about it. I went plaid for the...
Yeah. So, Brian, you personify what most people, everybody that's come through here said the best thing about drag racing is the camaraderie, the people helping one another. You can be up against somebody next round, but they need a part, you'll help them out with it. I know
Exactly.
That's you. You've done everything right, and you have helped so many people, reached out and helped people, that this is all stuff that makes you an Arizona drag racing legend. And so it's a big deal, man, and we really appreciate you being here today.
Well, I appreciate the thought and being able to come here and do this.
Thank you, Brian.